Yeah. What's up, everyone? I'm Tareq, and like he previously said, today we're gonna go over some of our experiences as Kisoft in back offices, what they are, how we build them out, and then we're gonna go through a couple of demos. The one that's we're gonna focus on a lot today is specifically around a really long and drawn out trading process, and we're just gonna go through that, and then we'll have a nice Q&A session after that, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So with that in mind, let me just pull up my screen share on our slideshow. Awesome. Uh, Screen's visible to everyone? Cool. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about building esoteric back offices with Grist. So, just to give a quick ahead about what we do at Keysoft, we basically handle the entire IT business stack of clients, and we build and manage their internal tools, and we advise them on IT strategy. And that puts us in a really good position to kind of look at strange business models that just don't have software to map them out or need multiple different software to map them out. So today we're going to answer two things in this slideshow, and then we're going to head on to the demo, which is what even is a back office and how would we define it? And the second thing is, why do we even get to the point where we have a back office when it's 2025 and everyone and their cousin has a SaaS or a micro SaaS for every tiny thing? So for most organizations, and I'm sure this relates to a lot of people's experiences, there's this magical glue that holds together their entire practice, whether that magical glue is a person, a process, and usually it's both. It's basically that mishmash of people that actually gets things moving on the ground outside of their official systems and usually outside of people's official mandates. Um, like we said, businesses spend millions yearly on ERP implementations, tooling, SaaS, etc. But most businesses kind of revert back to a simple load-bearing Excel sheet that handles most of their business operations. And usually it's just a single legacy employee that's been here for 5, 10, 15 years that actually runs it. And for the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to call that person Alex. So when do the problems actually start piling up? Alex decides to take a few weeks off. And what happens is the whole company goes into disarray and chaos. Very little gets done, if anything at all. And then we just have to pull up the phone and call Alex every 5 minutes just so that we can actually do anything related to the business. That is sad, and this is actually based on a true story we had with one of our customers, which we're going to be discussing today. So, why does this even happen? Why do we always end up in the point that no matter how sophisticated or careful a business is, they'll always end up in that scenario where there's that one person and that load bearing Excel sheet? Well, we would like to make the argument that as humans, we absolutely love our spreadsheets. Spreadsheets go back all the way back to ancient Sumerian Egypt. And if you look at this picture, you will see that this is a spreadsheet. You might not know what's on it, but it's a spreadsheet. So it's just really hard to fight spreadsheets. They just have a lot of sticking power, they have a lot of flexibility, and everyone just has this view that their business is unique and nobody else quite understands how it works. And it always starts with a small, tiny spreadsheet, a monthly report, a weekly schedule, etc. And it just spirals from there to becoming a load bearing sheet that just takes care of the entire business. For us, what do we think we should do? Let's just embrace the spreadsheet. And this is honestly where Grist shines because spreadsheets are already powerful tools. Adding the level of control, integration, and power that Grist offers on top of spreadsheets lets us continue working with what people already know. And it lets us meet people where they are and make their spreadsheets, which will be running the business whether we want them to or anyway, be much more sustainable and useful. And if we do that, Alex could actually enjoy their time off because the business is actually documented and running. So the ask was when this client approached us was they're not 100% aligned between what's happening on the ground and what's happening in the admin office on how they actually work. They're a company that does materials trading based out of the GCC, and Their problem is that the single point of failure, the person who actually understands what's going on between admin and operations, just took an extended leave. So the solution was we built them a Grist sheet to manage over 20 million USD of their trades since we deployed it in May. So we're gonna jump ahead and go into that spreadsheet. But before we do that, does anyone have any actual questions before we start? All right. Uh, so let's go. And of course, Anais, of course, it's a beautiful spreadsheet. It's a load bearing spreadsheet. It's a money making spreadsheet. Money is always beautiful to look at. All right. So this is their main reporting dashboard. As you can see, they've done a lot of deals through this spreadsheet to date, about 360 deals, totaling around 90 million reals in GMV, which in US dollar terms, that's about 22, 24 million USD. They track everything related to the deal, which stage it's in, which stage it's stuck on, what's been collected, what is still due. They track their entire business and finance operation on this deal, and they use it to hold their operations and their collections department accountable. This sheet started really small. It started with an accounts table, just who are we even dealing with and what's their relation to us. And over time, we started adding more and more and more robust data. This is the sheet that you see right now. It's the culmination of, I want to say, 3 or 4 months worth of work, of iteration, and actually deploying it in production. So basically, how the process would start is someone comes up to them and they want to buy certain materials. And they just start out by just specifying what those materials are, what they're going to cost, what they're going to price, what they're going to do for their finder's fee, what they're going to do for their administrative fees. All of that is added onto this sheet so that they can calculate what they're going to charge the client. And then it starts with the first unique thing. They send out an estimate. This estimate is actually generated from Grist through NA10. And to the people who watched the previous sessions on NA10 generation, the NA10 Grist synergy is such a great flowgramming tool. You can build and use entire systems. And I'm going to show you another thing that we built that I think is relevant to why you know host. You're going to love seeing this because it's amazing what you can do with enough time and the Grist sheet. So this entire thing is generated based on templates, and it's sent for signature through a governmental platform so that people can actually sign it through an audit trail. Their phone number is known, their ID number is known. There is no way this does not hold up in court. And once they've signed that estimate, we actually go and communicate to the vendor and we send them a purchase order directly. Again, this is ERP land, except there's approvals and there's signatures going on at the same time. So we send out this PR, and again, the pricing that goes to the customer, the end customer, is based on a finder's fee and a few other things, and the pricing that goes to the actual manufacturer is based on the actual cost. So we're maintaining two price lists and communicating two different price lists that, had we done manually, would have caused a lot of errors. And then afterwards, this is sent out. The payment is then collected from the actual accounting team. The accounting team does upload what was paid and when it was paid. And when that's done, we have them sign promissory notes. Now, to the people who aren't aware, a promissory note is basically an acknowledgement of debt. And this is because these guys tend to have drawn out payment schedules over 4 or 5 or 6 months. And what we do is we generate that schedule and then we generate the backing documents so that at any point there's a problem in collections, taking them to court or taking them to arbitration is super trivial because there's this whole audit log backed through a governmental platform using biometrics to make sure that everything stays above board. And then after all of that is done, then there's the post follow-up process. In the post follow-up process, there's capturing the actual invoice of what was done. There's synchronizing all of this across into their ERP system, which unfortunately I can't show because we didn't get permission to show that part, but it's synchronized to their ERP system. And then in addition to all of this, there's this unholy log of every single status update and every single change done on the actual document, including when certain documents were uploaded, who uploaded them, and when they were sent out, when they were signed. All of this is documented end to end. And to date, they have, I want to say, and I'm going to go into raw data to actually see this because I don't want to overwhelm my screen. They have to date 25,000 unique business log operations, which they're using right now through a data team that they have to actually figure out how to hold different supply chain associates, collections associates, and different departments accountable based on their metrics. Based on the analysis that they gave us last, signing times and deal execution times went down from 20 days from the customer requesting a quotation down to 2 days to execution and delivery. Now, in addition to this, let's say, main flow, they also had a few other issues related to document collection. So, to that end, we actually built out a way for them to collect missing documents from their suppliers and their clients. And this is also done through a Grist sheet with NA10 with an approvals process built in so that we can actually validate data for the people we're paying. And usually these people are being paid sums ranging between 10,000 to 100,000 USD. So it's super important to make sure all the banking details, company details, VAT details are correct. So we also built that out for them. Additionally, we built out what we call item aliasing. And item aliasing is basically a lot of people have different names for the same items. I have a air conditioning unit and it's an LG air conditioning unit of a certain model. 6 or 7 different suppliers might have it in a different way. And what we've done here is that we've added a way to alias all of that so that when they do their analysis for categories, for specific items, so that they know where the market is shifting in terms of pricing, all of that is consolidated under one umbrella, and we're able to figure out what's the cheapest price we got, what's the highest price we got. If I can just go here for a second, what's the cheapest price, what's the highest price, how much, how often are we selling this item? All of that is pulled out into a meta-based dashboard where they can actually see what's going on. In addition, this sheet also has a really robust implementation of access rights. And these access rights basically give us who should be approving certain operations, who should be seeing certain operations, who gets commissions on certain operations. All of that is fully mapped out. And what they do right now is that their ERP is now just basically there for compliance reasons. And all their day to day related to their actual trading activities is run completely through this spreadsheet. Um, does anyone have any questions? Okay, starting with how is logging done? So is Jordi here? Okay, cool. Jordi isn't here. So basically, the way we do the logging is we kept it completely inside of Grist. So if I just go to any of these deals here, and I'm just going to show you how we're doing this. So we're using an internal API method um, called lookup or add derived. I'm sure you've seen the discussions on the Discord server about this, but what lookup or add derived does, it's an undocumented method right now, and it's used in summary tables internally. So it's semi-public. And what we basically do is we have a trigger formula that when the status changes, it uses lookup or add derived to add the next status entry. And this way, we know when the status changes because it's adding it to a table without needing to use webhooks. Why did we opt not to use webhooks? Mostly because we knew this was going to be too many updates. And when we started this sheet, NA10 was still using their workflow model, which is basically every request counts towards your workflows. So rather than exhausting those workflows, we just opted to do it completely inside of Grist. Precise in the field like this. Lookup for add derived has entered. Yes, lookup for add derived has entered the chat. It is a goated method. Please do more of it. So this covers the Grist part of it, and we're just going to go into the NA10 part quickly just to give an idea of the number of operations going on in the background. So if we just type in the client name, So our client has 31 total operations going on. And these operations, and I'm just going to go through a quick sampling of them because we don't have time to go through all of them. These operations vary from synchronizing things into their Zoho ERP, and I'm just going to show how we're doing that. And let's go to a good one, which is PN generation. And let's go to the last one, and let's do the email collection. Purchase order V2. Okay. So here what we're doing is we're using Grist. Basically, this one's triggered by Webflow, by a webhook, where we're using Grist to basically figure out if there are multiple files that need to be synced here into the ERP. And then we download them directly from Grist. We combine all this data together, and then we upload it into Zoho in this case. And what that basically does is that it allows them to have all their document files, not just on Grist, so where they're actually doing the work, but also on Zoho, where they're handling their compliance. How do you prevent data changes should not land in open offers? We lock deals after a certain state. So it kind of depends on their specific business logic, but we lock deals after they reach a certain state. They can no longer add items. And because of the way we handle aliasing, if a specific item changes, it only changes for that deal. I see a question coming up from Thomas. Honestly, that lookup or derived is completely discretionary to the Grist team on whether or not they want to have documentation on it, because and I'm going to explain this on behalf of Nick because Nick explained this a lot to me. Basically, lookup or add derived is an internal method that has some undocumented side effects. So if you're using it for anything other than a simple log or a simple aggregation, it's probably not what you want. Is the locking manual? The locking is based on status and access rights. So basically, it's just your normal access rights. If it's beyond a certain stage, we just set a flag on the actual deal. And the deal, by the way, is like you see this, and this is basically part of the deal. But the deal is, I want to say, about 100. How many columns is this? Just 1 second. It's about 140 columns worth of data. Each deal is about 140 columns. So there's a lot of locking columns, status columns, columns related to actual pricing, columns that are formulas or triggers, columns that are internal configurations on a deal that are modified by certain people. There's a lot going on a deal specifically. So it's about 140 columns. It's a super long process. Do we have any performance issues? We used to have some performance issues, but that really came down to the fact that when we started hosting Grist, um, we just didn't configure it correctly in terms of the access rights, the Redis cache for sessions, and the way that sessions worked. After we did that, we have actually not had any performance issues. And just to give a general overview, if we go to actually the document settings, and again, this is a super useful thing, which is you can actually just time the formulas. And when we timed the formulas, most of these formulas on total runtime took several milliseconds on total runtime for all rows. So we haven't actually faced any actual performance issues. I'm just going to let this run for a second so we can see. Do you ever need to use just built-in backups, snapshots for some kind of user errors? Sometimes, for experimental features we're working on, we would work on a copy of the document. It says that the document is so integrated with NA10, it's a hassle to do that. So what we tend to do is to just take a dump of the actual document before we actually work on it, and then we just move forward, and we just have a general agreement with them that some parameters are not to be modified during work hours, only during weekends or maintenance windows. And as you can see with the formula here, the total time never goes beyond a few milliseconds. It's really a non-starter for us in terms of the actual performance, because Grist, again, the usage of SQLite just makes Grist perform so well It just doesn't really come to mind that whether or not formulas ever need to be considered for a performance issues. That does happen sometimes, especially if you're using some of the more experimental features of Grist, like using web requests or using custom Python libraries to do rendering. But on your average formula, generally speaking, like even if I go look at the worst formula here, it takes 600 milliseconds to run, and that mostly just comes down to copying down some data. It's really not that bad. So the one that I think would concern everyone is the one that's using lookup or add derived. So I think that would be on the deals table. Let me just filter by those, and let me just filter that on latest interaction or interaction. Oh, I can't seem to find it. Yeah, that one isn't an issue anyway because it's because we converted it to a trigger formula, so it takes maybe 1 or 2 milliseconds to run in the background. It doesn't really bother. So that is a great weakness of no code solutions. Yes, that's generally the problem with no code, but I would say um, for low code solutions specifically, it's about tempering expectations. Uh, Low code doesn't really take well to the whole concept of dev test prod. It's just part and parcel of the risk of using low code in that you're going to be doing work on production data directly. So, me personally, I prefer to have snapshot systems and then to just work on production data directly. That's how I personally prefer to work. But again, I've seen it done where people just have two duplicates of a sheet or they're using some scripts to synchronize data across sheets. But personally, this is just generally how I work. Because I've come to the general conclusion after 9 years as a software engineer is that you can only take software engineering principles so far with low code. At some point, you just need to take the platform for what it is. All right, cool. Thomas has a question coming up. While we get that question out of the way, I want to show you another one of our back offices, which is the back office we built for ourselves. So this back office has much of the same facilities, especially when it comes to contract signatures. So same thing here. We have fully automated contract signatures going through Grist, and I'm just going to show you, for example, a contract. So this is one of the contracts that we've recently issued. All of the data related to the specific people is being pulled directly from Grist through our account management, including this data, the titles of the people signing, etc., all of that. This is our subscription management system for our IT firm because we work on a retainer basis with most of our clients. So this is how we're working internally right now. Additionally, we also have an offer generation system where we just put in exactly what the hours we want to work on a project in, and it just gives us this nice PDF that we can send out to clients. Again, this is more of a cookie cutter case where you just have template generation and e-signature, not as sophisticated as the previous one, but a lot of use for us personally. Um, the third thing that I kind of want to show here, and it just goes back to having a nice dashboard, we also use this to calculate and handle all of our lead scoring, all of our sales calls, and all of our MRR and ARR calculations, in addition to all of our commission calculations for our sales associates. And lastly, and this is like the latest, and sorry, the last two things I want to show here are we also use this as an interface for our AI research and our strategy bots. So basically, we have a very big, well, it's not a very big, we have an AI agent and a few flows behind it doing agentic RAG to basically answer questions about our business from this sheet, which pulls from the CRM, our finances, etc. And this is kind of what we're using right now to have reports and guiding principles for our business internally as well. And the last thing that I do want to show is tool deployments. And this is something we did maybe 4 or 5 days ago. We have a lot of clients who want us to manage their tool deployments. So, what we're basically doing right now is we've created kind of a mini cloud platform where if we want to deploy a tool for a customer, it's a tool we already support. All we need to do is to select the actual customer. Let's say this customer, for example. And then we just need to select the tool that we want to deploy. And if it's approved, then this actually gets deployed through N8N on a server. As you can see, it's adding the deployment status, whether it's deployed or not, etc. And this allows us to deploy open source tools for our customers on completely separate instances based on their compliance without needing to leave our CRM in Grist. How do we facilitate communication between different users? So for the first sheet, we actually send out emails to specific people related to the deal. If I can just go back here to show you. Um, so, and I'm just going to close this for a second. Let's remove this and this. Okay, and go back to deals. So if we just go here, I'm going to go to one of the later deals that happened earlier. So here we have a bunch of contacts related to the specific deal. And whenever the status is relevant to them or they need to take an action, the email is sent out and it links to either an N8N form or a webhook where their approval or their document or whatever, it's handled through that. And then it's reflected back onto Grist. So we just send people emails based on what their current role in the deal is. There are maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 different participants to every deal as roles. Usually it's actually 4 or 5 people. And depending on the role they're having in that deal, we send them out an email to take actions on that deal, whether they're from the client side, whether they're from the supplier side, or whether they're from the trading company itself. All right, awesome. Do we have any other questions?
There was one question by Celine. What did you try to do but couldn't make it?
So what did we try to do but couldn't make it? So couldn't or wouldn't, because those are two separate things. So couldn't, since we're a full board IT service firm, we can basically integrate or write custom tooling for anything. And we did have to do that at some point, especially because of some legal mandates. All documents need to be in Arabic here in Saudi Arabia to be legally valid. So we had to port some things to generate some Arabic documentation. We had to do some custom implementations from that. Wouldn't do. There are some things they asked us to see if we can implement that would be expensive on both sides and go under the scope um, of custom software implementation. And for those, we generally avoid doing them. We either ask them to do it with another vendor from our network, or we see if we can find another software. So I would say there isn't anything we couldn't do so far. It's just that some things are too expensive for us to do, so we wouldn't do them. I hope that answered the questions. Right. Cool. So, if I understand correctly, other systems use the data in Grist. Any issues there? Is it only read or write? It's actually read and write. So the actual deal starts from their website where someone pings us through a webhook onto Grist. And that's the right part. And then there's the other right parts from NA10 and the various form collection systems connected into this sheet, which would update different parameters inside the account or the deal. So it's read and write. In terms of things like issues, there haven't been issues, but again, we're not talking about a system that handles millions of transactions per day. It handles 15 to 20 deals a day. So there aren't a lot of race conditions going on that would cause any technical issues or access rights issues. How do we handle cascade delete? We don't. We just don't do cascade delete. We just put the deal on a no sale status and keep all the data related to it. It's just not worth it to do actual hard deletes. We just need to filter out the root entity from the table, and then the rest of the data, we're fine with storing that extra.
Okay. Wow, we got through a lot of questions and a lot of stuff there. We're gonna pause it there. We can follow up with any other questions in the discussion channel. That was really awesome. A little scary looking at some of that stuff and not understanding it, but really impressive how much you managed to do. Um,
Yep.
So thank
So
you, Tarek. Yeah.
yeah, cool. I just want to the takeaways that we had. I just want to emphasize two things in takeaways. Open source is awesome, obviously, and outsourcing specific domains and compliance is way easier than implementing them in house. So those are the two takeaways that I think came out of this entire discussion for us.